Spectacularific. You know what? I'm not saying that.
Oh, man.
The Monkey King. With the way that Netflix wants to cater to China with some of its animated offerings in recent years, it was only a matter of time that it takes a shot at adapting one of its most famous novels. The best way to describe the original tale that this is based on, Journey to the West, is that it's one of those stories that everyone knows. Even if you don't know it, you actually do know without knowing it. Journey to the West, and more specifically, the character of Sun Wukong, has been a source of inspiration for generations in just about every type of media imaginable. Not only has there been a good amount of adaptations over the years, but if you find something that's a bit fantasy-oriented that has some kind of Chinese theming, then there's a good chance that it'll have their version of the Monkey King, whether it be in movies, TV shows, anime, games, and many more. In other words, if you ever see a smart-aleck monkey or monkey-like character with a bow staff riding a cloud, then you are familiar with the Monkey King. Actually, even as of the release of this review, the tale should sound familiar, as Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has a story that is strikingly similar to Journey to the West. However, let's not think too deep into that, because if someone hears you calling Miles Morales the Monkey King without context, then you might as well change your name and hide in a hole.
Don't do that.
But of course, fresh reminders of the original tale are always welcome, and maybe Netflix will step in to provide a new take for Western audiences about the cunning legend of Sun Wukong. So now that the king has a new animated version, will this feel like an adaptation from the gods, or does this monkey keep on tripping on his own stick? Let's find out.
Hey everyone, before we get started on this review, I'd like to mention that the movie that I'll be talking about, and to a certain extent this review that you are watching now, would not be possible if it weren't for the actors and the writers who have played a key role in the making of this film. As you are probably aware, or during the time that this review was released, both actors and writers are on strike in order to protect their livelihoods, fighting for a more livable wage and job security from the threats of AI. As a professional actor myself, I stand in solidarity with the strikers and support their fight until they inevitably win. If you'd like to support the strike, then donate to the Entertainment Community Fund at entertainmentcommunity.org. Thank you all for your attention, and now, enjoy the review.
The story. Unsurprisingly, this is more of a loose adaptation to the original tale, or more specifically, the earlier chapters of the novel that depict Sun Wukong's feud with the gods as he tries to make himself equal to them. In the movie, this is more like a journey in itself, where Monkey takes the steps that are required to become a god, much to the behests of the higher-ranked beings.
You right? I don't belong here. I belong with them.
There is a noticeable difference between the two, much like the difference between a regular desk and a cool high-tech one from today's sponsor, FlexiSpot. They make all sorts of awesome desks with different colors, but the one I got from them is the bamboo white Komar. After doing the surprisingly easy setup, I was setting up the right height for both sitting and standing, which I can then save so that I could switch from 4 different presets with just a push of a button. And this pleases my childish side to fool around with it. Not to mention that it has 3 USB ports that I can use to charge some of my devices, and has a handy drawer for some extra storage. And if you think it's time to upgrade your desk, then all you have to do is check out the link in the description. And once you get your new FlexiSpot desk, you'll recognize how those changes can make a big impact to that thing, much like the differences between Journey to the West and the Monkey King. Outside of the story itself, the big difference between this and its source material is the tone of the adventure that does set itself apart from all the other adaptations. Unfortunately, as this is an animated family film from a mainstream company like Netflix, it really wants to be a mainstream animated family film. I'd even go as far and say that this tone takes higher priority than the story itself. In a way, the movie has this fear that the audience may get bored while watching, which is why it packs itself with elements that makes it feel like there's always something happening. Whether it be extravagant action scenes, large quantities of comedy, or even a few musical numbers.
I'll flood the drylands low in Thailand.
He's taking the world by storm.
Yes, I am.
Theoretically, there's never a dull moment in this movie. However, not everything it tries to do works, and eventually, it throws so much at once that it kind of feels like an act of desperation to grab the viewer's attention with a checklist of what conceptually makes a kid's flick entertaining. I will give it that the one thing that it does right is the action scenes. I'll go more into detail on how the animation helps spice up the moments to make things more interesting later, but I'll say now that it does take advantage of the film's snappy and flashy tone to be more engaging to see what danger will Monkey find himself next. But then you have the comedy. This is the kind of film that wants to tell a joke at every second, throwing out gag after gag after gag at a rapid pace. The only problem is that the movie is not funny whatsoever. And what's worse is that it poisons the personalities to the point that, if it were for the animation and the action, this movie would have been next to intolerable. It's the most prominent aspect that makes this feel the most like a Hollywood kids film where almost everyone was given a smart aleck attitude, yet supply no charisma that can make anything they say feel amusing, and just ends up giving the picture a continuously annoying tone.
So, where are the immortal ones?
Yeah, we were promised gods.
They're coming.
For me, this is the key problem that's preventing me from being invested in either the story or the characters. And yet, when trying to disconnect from the execution, I think the script itself is actually not that bad. Sure, it doesn't have the best story and took a bunch of creative liberties from the source material, but I could see how this quest-like plot can actually work to provide an interesting message about taking action on achieving your goals. Not to mention having an ending that is surprisingly accurate to the original tale that can be a bit emotional. There is a way to take the script and turn it into a fun-filled movie that stays true to the creativity of Journey to the West. However, those chances of being enjoyable got dashed due to the horrible directing that led the picture to become just another corporately made kids film with little value. There are many ways to adapt Journey to the West to tell the story to new generations. This is not one of them. The animation. At the very least, this may not be amongst the best adaptations of Journey to the West, but I will say that this is one of the better looking ones. The film did go through an intriguing production history where it was originally Real Effects that was supposed to animate this, but then the job was given to Tangent Animation, the same studio behind Maya and the Three. However, after the studio closed down in 2021, Real Effects ultimately did the work alongside Netflix Animation and Pearl Studio. As a result, their contribution is undeniably the best part of the picture. As the original story is set in a fabled China filled with wondrous lands, the team developed some admirable world building to show their version that feels true to the depictions of Chinese lore. There can be a few average areas like the jungle at the beginning or the small village that Monkey saved, in the same way that a movie superhero would, but then there are other places that really play with the creativity of Chinese mythology, like the Dragon King's underwater kingdom, the Jade Palace in heaven, or its own interpretation of hell. But I will say that I do notice that there can be times when there had to be some corners cut. With the exception of hell, there can be times when they show some of these grand places, but they also have a lot of open space. Like an unnatural amount, as if their computers could only render a handful of objects and characters at a time to not overblow the budget. While impressively big, the environment could have benefited from having more elements to be more immersive and livelier. The same sentiment goes with the designs. I'll admit that the characters do look good, and it's nice to see all the different creative gods and monsters that Monkey confronts that add color and some Chinese artistry to their look. Not to mention the high amount of textures to bring them to life that add their visual personalities.
And you, sir, stole my stick.
No, I didn't. I found it at the bottom of the ocean, right in the middle of some tacky palace.
Oh, tacky?
On the other hand, there is a part of them that do look a little generic. Like, there's nothing very memorable about their designs. Again, they're not bad, but I would have liked to see an extra push to have the designs be a little more abstract and double down on the Chinese art style to really highlight the story's origins. Yes, they are minor complaints and don't fully take away from the craftsmanship done here, but it's the little things that I noticed that could have helped the animation go from good to great. Although there was one instance where it knows how to be greatly stylized with that one 2D scene. But then you have the action scenes. I've already stated how they are the better parts of the picture and the one upside to the narrative's tone. But in terms of how the animators pull them off, not only do they have a great fast pace that sets the excitement, but they are also when the gods show off their supernatural powers and make the most out of the effects and lighting that add more color and aid the viewer to follow the flow of the fight. Not to mention how it uses a metal soundtrack to set the mood for the battles to feel more epic.
Shaolin soccer!
Could the animation be better? Honestly, yes. But even with my criticisms, that does not mean that it visually looks bad at all. The movie itself may not be enjoyable, but at least your eyes will have a good time. The characters. Throughout Monkey's quest to become a god, I think I had a much easier time to become immortal than finding a single character here that I like. I know there could be an argument that there are some who share the same traits as their source material, but the way they are presented here make them possibly some of the worst versions of their respective character. Most of their personalities boil down to just being an annoying wisecracker who care more about throwing out quips and bad witty remarks more so than developing their personalities or convey genuine emotions. I don't really blame the voice actors for the issue with their roles. They did okay for what they're supposed to do, but again, it's the direction they're given that makes them hopeless and sucks out most of the fun that could have been had in the picture.
Oh, your skin's all cleared up? You're gorgeous. You must be from the Dang Dynasty. Hey, you gotta try these peaches, man.
Let's go and begin this with the Monkey King himself.
Monkey.
An egomaniac who wants to be a god to compensate for the years of loneliness that he endured. I will say now that his selfishness alone is not the problem here. I am fully aware that Sun Wukong is one of the most prominent examples of that archetype, and there have been ways that filmmakers and storytellers were able to present his ego as charming and likable. And when it comes to bringing that type of character onto a movie, I understand it can be really tricky to make a selfish character feel endearing and enjoyable like Cusco from The Emperor's New Groove. I get that it's a key component to the character of Sun Wukong, but when it comes to the Monkey King, this version feels like it doesn't care about his portrayal in the original story and tries to be a clone of Maui from Moana, a character who thinks of himself as a superior god with supernatural powers and has a silent sidekick that acts more like his conscience. But instead of a living tattoo, it's his bow staff that he calls Stick.
Fine. I said fine. So, assistant girl, you coming or what?
Alongside the monkey is Lin, who is more like the straight woman to Monkey's comedic antics. At first, I thought she would be like a Moana type to contrast with Monkey as Maui, since she has a personal goal of wanting to save her village, and while a part of that can be true, I'll just say without spoiling too much that she's actually more like Meg from Hercules, where she's constantly in a mental struggle to either aid the protagonist or to betray him.
Don't look back. Don't look back. Don't look back.
No, not this time.
This also brings up another distasteful aspect of the film, that the heroes are grossly detestable. It's hard to root for any of them when their shortcomings make them feel toxic as individuals. You got an egomaniac who thinks he's better than everyone and only wants to accelerate his glory with no regard to the well-being of others, and then you have a person whom, regardless of how much of a bond they'll have with someone, they won't hesitate to backstab them for their personal reasons. As much as there may be some cool parts here, it's tough to get through when the leads are the most troublesome beings in the whole adventure. It doesn't help either when almost everyone they encounter put in a lot of effort to make this film as mean-spirited as possible.
Maybe the demon will eat the monkey.
And leave us alone.
Either way, we win.
Ooh, I like it. Brick.
Then you have the Dragon King, whom in the book is the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, Ao Guang. In this version, he's the straightforward villain who wants to get Stick back in his possession so that he could take over the world. However, his character is reduced to being this wily coyote villain whom most of the film tries to get the stick from Monkey, but always fails to do so. And like the Monkey King, has a smart aleck personality where he can never shut up and make cringy remarks, and is accompanied by 2 bumbling henchmen.
Suffer my wrath.
Was supposed to be lightning crash, and there it is.
There are other characters from the novel who do appear, like the Jade Emperor, Buddha, the Elder Monkey, and some of the gods that Monkey battles, but they don't deliver a lot in terms of their personality. I will give it to them though that some of them are pretty cool in terms of their abilities during the action. One of the appeals of Journey to the West is to see the rambunctious characters that range from quirky personalities to fantastical gods. In this movie, there is nothing more than the characters that make me want to avoid re-experiencing the film again. There are many ways that you can experience the story of Journey to the West. Some are more comical, some are more serious, some are more epic, and there are some like this movie that are not worth watching. Netflix's 2023 version of The Monkey King takes the classic Chinese tale and turns it into an annoying and stale animated kids film. What Paws of Fury did to Blazing Saddles in 2022, The Monkey King did the same to Journey to the West. I'll give it that the nice animation and the enjoyably creative action scenes saved the feature from being all around terrible, but the never-endingly bad comedy, the unappealing characters, and the obnoxious and mean-spirited Hollywood-like manufactured tone prevents this film to be considered either good or worthwhile. Since there are so many different versions of the story out there, I personally recommend that you skip this one and instead go watch the 1960s film Havoc in Heaven, or Uproar in Heaven. Not only is this movie a lot more accurate to the source material, but it's pretty much what the Monkey King wishes it could be, with an actual likable version of the monkey, beautiful artistry in the animation, and an overall tone that feels like an authentic fairy tale. It's some of the finest Chinese animation that you'll find, and it's free to watch on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, how about giving this review a like and subscribe to my channel? If you enjoyed this review, then you'll have a lot of fun with many of my other videos. As much as Sun Wukong considers himself equal to the great gods, this Monkey King is actually subpar compared to the rest.
What just happened?